Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Learn with Json. Today on the show, we have Tomasz Łakomy. How you
Hey,
doing, man?
everyone. Very happy to be here.
How you been? So for y'all in the chat, Tomasz and I know each other because we met at it was JS Heroes, right? It was the first time
Yeah,
that
in
we
Armenia.
hung
Yeah.
out, and then I think we really bonded in React India, which React India was really a special event. The organizers did an amazing job there. We got a chance to hang out in Goa, which is gorgeous. And anyways, I'm talking a lot about you without giving you a chance to talk about you. So for those of us in the chat who aren't familiar with you, do you want to maybe give us a little background on yourself?
Sure thing. For the record, like if somebody is not familiar with me, they're not missing much, so that's fine. I'm Tomasz Łakomy. I'm born and raised in Poznań, Poland. This is where basically some of the members of my company are also based at. I am a front-end engineer at Steady, and I'm very happy to work in a fully distributed team where all of my coworkers from my team are located in the same city, which is
Fully distributed
surprising.
team where everybody's all together.
I mean, we have 60 employees all around the world, but all four of us just happen to be from the same city, which makes it for an excellent occasion because everybody's the same time zone and whatnot. Given the fact that we have like up to 5 kilometers from each other. Apart from that, like I said, I used to do conferences when offline conferences were a thing. I was very excited to meet you. In React India, I was looking forward to having more conferences in 2020. Then we know offline conferences were not a thing. They are still another thing.
They sure weren't.
Yeah, and I'm also fairly active on Egghead. Both of us are teaching on Egghead, and I've managed to record like 170-ish lessons.
Holy
on
crap!
Yeah, I was busy.
Dang, that's I have not. Don't tell Joel, but Joel is Joel Hooks, who is one of the founders of Egghead, and 170 is a lot. That's solid. That's a solid effort.
Let me actually look it up. Tomasz Łakomy, front engineer at Steady. His interests include React, AWS, and jQuery, obviously.
jQuery, of course.
Yeah, totally. Today live stream is the jQuery masterclass is 7 hours long, so be prepared.
Wow, that's a lot. And I'm dropping a link in the chat. These will also be in the resources to your Egghead page. You cover a lot of things. We are not going to talk about jQuery today, which I know you're probably sad about, but we are going to talk about TypeScript and serverless functions and how to fit those two things together. So let's see what we can start with here. So let's start by talking about TypeScript. We've done a couple episodes on TypeScript on the show before. We've had Ben Alegbodu talk about it. We've had Orta Therox. Oh crap! I said his name out loud before and I just forgot what his last name is pronounced like. Sorry, Orta. Anyways, we've done TypeScript stuff, but so we haven't done a lot of TypeScript stuff. And I, in my day-to-day, I guess in my current job, I don't really write code at all in my day-to-day, but now, and previously, I wasn't writing TypeScript often. And usually when I did, what I actually found myself doing was like writing JS doc types for function returns and inputs to get like autocomplete, but I didn't like do type checking or anything. It was like, let's use TypeScript for the parts that I like the type ahead, and not deal with learning TypeScript. So I'd love to just kind of get your take on this. Like you are obviously a very big proponent of TypeScript. You've done a bunch of teaching material about it. So for you, what's the draw? Like why do you like TypeScript as a way to write code?
That's a good question. So there's a couple of things here. First of all, I really care about the quality of stuff that I ship. As in, for a bunch of reasons. First of all, I believe that if you have like a non-zero amount of users, your job essentially is to provide them with the best user experience they can get. and having a page blown up in production because undefined apparently is not a function. Well, it's not exactly it's not exactly the best kind of experience. And secondly, which I think is even more important, and you kind of touched upon on this, was you have this kind of understanding of, for instance, you have a function and you take some arguments or it takes an object, and if you either do the JS doc thingy or you embrace TypeScript in its entirety and you write TypeScript, you always know what arguments is this function going to expect and how many arguments, how many of them are optional and whatnot. And having that, well, it kind of frees your mind to think about other things. You don't have to constantly look up the documentation, which you don't have, because if I see you don't have documentation probably for your internal stuff. But TypeScript serves as a documentation. Like everything that you write using TypeScript is.
Well, you got to call us out like that, Tomasz.
Oh, sorry.
Just putting us on blast on main like that. Come on.
Oh, that's fair. But still, if you embrace TypeScript, you're going to have documentation by default. And thirdly, it minimizes the feedback loop.
Mm-hmm.
So what I mean by that is if I refactor something and TypeScript keeps complaining, there are red squiggly lines everywhere, I am not going to open up my browser. I'm not going to even check, because as long as TypeScript is complaining, I know that this code is not going to work. But as soon as TypeScript stops complaining, then I get to open up my browser or whatever, and start clicking around in the UI or start sending requests to the backend and whatnot. I found
that's actually a really good point, because we think about the feedback loop and shortening it, and you think oh well, I'm working locally. You get a really fast feedback loop, and but there are degrees of this. There's the feedback loop where every time you make a change, you have to shut down the app, recompile it, and run it again, right? And then you can see whether or not it worked. There's the feedback loop where you make a change and then you have to refresh your browser, and then you get to see whether or not it worked. There's the feedback loop where you save your code and it hot refreshes, and that's a pretty fast feedback loop. But you're talking about one where you don't even have to save your code. You just have to write some code, and your editor is automatically nah, that's not going to work.
Exactly.
It's a game of seconds, but we spend a significant amount of time in our code editors, and those seconds add up to days, weeks of effort that we won't spend every year of refreshing browsers just to see that something broken is broken.
Yeah. And also it's because your cognitive resources are limited, to the best of my knowledge. So if you
to the best of my knowledge, well, not mine, of course, but
oh boy. But what happens is that if you work 8 hours per day as a developer, and you end up switching between your editor and your browser constantly, you also switch the context of your mind, because you switch from typing and editing code to clicking around in the UI mode. Going back and forth is it's not exactly optimal, because you click around, okay, the page exploded again, undefined is not a function. I'm going to go back, fix that, and so on. But one thing that I would like to clarify here, because every single time somebody talks about TypeScript in this kind of way that I tend to talk about TypeScript, there's always this argument that, I am not going to have bugs in production. No, you will have bugs in production. Everybody has bugs in production, but TypeScript kind of eliminates a certain class of bugs, or at least makes them quite unlikely. As in, if you have a fully typed app, you are not very likely to get, calling a null as a function or something like that. I mean, it can happen if you are dealing with something that you get from the backend or whatnot.
Yeah.
And it's not exactly fully typed, but it's much less likely. And I like that it allows me to focus on other stuff, to focus on the things that I'm actually trying to ship, as opposed to dealing with those randoms with random bugs. At the cost of course, much higher learning curve, because TypeScript is not simple.
Sorry, I just got completely derailed because my past has showed up in the chat. Byron McCoy asked if I could build a website for his band, Simple as It Seems. And so, as many of you might know, I used to be a touring musician back in the day, and Byron was in one of the bands that we would play with all the time. So what's up, Byron? What do you do? Are you a dev these days? What's happening? No, that's amazing. So I apologize for going way off topic, but wow, that's wild. Yeah. So what you just said that I find really interesting to try to get my brain back into the right mode here is hey, thank you for the sub, Vinny Code.
Thank you for the sub.
Is you're talking about, so like there are bugs that happen because code is hard. You're trying to get a computer to think, and thoughts are messy. You're trying to like move information from point A to point B and get things to change in certain ways, and that's not always predictable. Those bugs are inevitable. You're trying to like build a thought process, a logical chain. Mm-hmm. But then there are bugs where you just typoed something. You just forgot to define a thing. You're calling one property, but it's actually called something else. Or those aren't like programming bugs. Those are typos. They're syntax errors. They're things that are they're not wrong because you're thinking through something. They're wrong because you screwed up. And what you're saying is that TypeScript can help eliminate a large number of those like I screwed up bugs, like the typos and the I didn't realize I forgot to define that and those sorts of things that they really can bog you down.
Exactly. Like they slow you down, they make you less productive. It's annoying to say that is, trying to chase a bug for like 5 hours and then you notice, okay, it's a typo. And like one more thing is that types are also somewhat a way, because like speaking of types, or you also mentioned this example where something used to be called, I don't know, XYZ, now it's called something else. Types are also a way of teams can communicate with each other through types. So for instance, at work, where I work at Steady as a front-end engineer, we have multiple backend teams who are building their microservices, and they publish the types for their packages. So for instance, if I bump a version of the types and my code is full of red squiggly lines, then I know, okay, there was a change in this contract. This kind of established by types. So again, I am not likely to push this code to production, and my users are not going to complain because the page is not very likely to be immediately broken. But you are absolutely right. But you may very well may have bugs that are caused by your kind of like misunderstanding of business requirements, or you were trying to make the computer do this one thing and it's misbehaves, or like it's trying to it's not following your orders basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I love that. So TypeScript, it makes sense. It sounds like it's something that it makes kind of steady improvements to save you some time, save you some frustration, and generally make the steady. Yeah. Hey. And then, so in addition to TypeScript, we're also going to talk about serverless functions today. So let's take a second and talk about those. I mean, really, I guess, what's your story with serverless functions? What attracted you to them? What do you use them for? Why do you think they're cool?
So there's a number of things that I enjoy about serverless functions. So first of all, they allow you to abstract a certain set of problems away. As in, I have a code that I would like to run. I don't know, I'm going to send a GET request and it's supposed to, get me like a random joke or whatever. And this is like one small thing that I would like to build, and I have, like a half an hour to build that. I don't want to set up infrastructure. I don't want to think about servers. I don't want to think about, okay, I have to buy a hosting. I have to, do all those things that kind of drive you away from the problem at hand, that you want to build like a silly things, like an API for jokes or something like that. Mm-hmm. Whereas with serverless, what you tend to do is you have a code and you give it to a serverless function provider such as Netlify. And Netlify is taking care of all of those things for you. So you don't have to kind of think about, for instance, where your code actually lives. Where is that server? Well, that's why it's called serverless, because like you don't really know. And secondly, if you are building like a side project and you've already paid $500 for a domain with 0 lines of code written, then your budget is probably going to be limited. With serverless, you only pay for what you use, and most serverless kind of providers have 3 tiers on top of that. So unless you have huge traffic, you're not going to pay much for serverless, because serverless is ridiculously cheap. And secondly, once you do have traffic, you're only going to pay for the traffic that actually gets used. So for instance, whenever somebody is going to call your function, as opposed to a server being up and running 24/7, 365 days per year, and you have to pay to have that server up and running.
Yeah, even if the thing only gets called a few times a day, it still has to be live for 24 hours a day.
Yeah, like I know if you are running like a startup and you are only, your entire customer base is in a single country or in a single time zone, you are effectively, wasting money away by having this server running in the middle of the night, because like, face it, not many customers are hitting your, pizza delivery website at 4 a.m. I mean, some do, including myself, but...
I was going to say pizza delivery at 4 a.m. may not have been the best example.
That's a good point. That's an excellent point. I mean, some people are into sandwiches at 4 a.m.
That's true. Donut delivery. I learned that there are places that you can go where you can get like cookies delivered in the middle of the night, and they somehow deliver them like warm as if they're freshly baked. I'm very glad that I don't know where that service is.
Do they bake them on your porch, or?
I don't know. I think they have some kind of a oven van or something, or maybe it's just a trick. It's all just a trick. They put it under the hood and like leave it on the engine while they drive over to your house, so it's just kind of like melty, not fresh.
Yeah.
But anyways, I'm glad I don't have access to that service, because I would be ordering cookies at 4 a.m. I would be the reason that you need a 24-hour server, actually, if you were running a cookie delivery service in Portland. But I see your point. Yeah, like you don't want to pay for things that you don't use. Like I think that's important when you're a huge company, because like little expenses add up, and suddenly you have like $100,000 bills. But it's really important when you're an individual. Like, I have an idea. My idea is maybe good, but I want to try it and find out if it's good. I shouldn't have to invest $500 or $1,000 to like run a service for 6 months to see if people want to use it. I should be able to do it for free, right? I want to be able to validate my idea and see if anybody wants it before I have to pay money outside of my $12 or $50 or $500 for a domain. Right, because obviously I'm going to get the premium domain.
Exactly, like 4-letter domains.dev, which are like crazy expensive.
It gets steep in a hurry for sure.
Yeah, but you're absolutely right. But like all those serverless managed services, they also open like the door to experimentation. As in, you don't have to have a budget upfront in order to start experimenting with something, and kind of. The pricing of serverless services, it tends to kind of like follow your success when you are building a startup, for instance. So if you have 2 customers, it's going to probably well within a feature, or it's just an experiment. But when you're Uber for pizzas at 4 a.m., this app explodes and it has like billions of customers, it's going to scale up.
Right.
And also because you are going to leverage a cloud provider underneath that, you are not going to, again, think about servers. You don't have to think about like scaling them and so on up to a certain point, of course. But, the vast majority of all those problems are completely abstracted away from you, and you get to focus on, things that are important. So making your customers happy.
Yeah, I want to build things. I don't want to like build boilerplate so I can eventually build things. I want to focus on the fun part, not on standing up the server or making sure my server doesn't like fall over if a bunch of people call it at the same time. Like I love this idea of let's get the boilerplate out of the way. Let me just have my idea. You mentioned earlier, you have an idea. It's a funny idea. You want to make a little joke API. and you've got 30 minutes to work on it, right? I am not going to spend a full weekend on a joke API if I have to stand up a node server and figure out how to get it into a Docker container and then figure out how to get that up onto some provider and figure out how to configure my API gateway. But if I can just put that my little joke API in a serverless function and it's just deployed and like I push to Git and it's live, I'll do that every day. Like I feel like it unlocks creativity. It unlocks my ability to just try stuff. It's not so much of an investment to have a side project when you can ship a side project in 30 minutes.
Exactly, totally. As in, like I said, when you are starting a new project and I don't know, it requires a database or something, you are, halfway through 8-hour MongoDB tutorial and you forget, okay, what I was trying to build in the first place, because like all those things take so much time and also like let's face it, when you are trying to build some kind of infrastructure from the very, as a complete beginner, this is your very first attempt. At some point, like things are going to start to break because you are probably not an expert, and you also like your server is not a huge data center. So at some point, like you won't be able to handle all of this traffic and so on. Whereas as opposed to cloud provider, like those things can scale like nearly infinitely. I mean, up to a certain point, of course. But if you're if a cloud provider can handle like Uber or Amazon or whatever traffic, I'm sure they can handle your joke API traffic.
That's generally how I think about it, right? Is like if, at the point that I need to worry about the breaking point of cloud provider scale, if I'm not making enough money to hire an expert to scale it for me, I have made mistakes.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm trying to imagine how do you do that? Like how do you make a server that is so successful and you cannot? Oh boy, no. Because like,
right. Like it's Well, yeah, because it's one of those things that you don't want to get into like premature optimization, right? Like everything has limits, but if you assume that you're going to hit the limits of everything, then you just end up never starting, right? And so a lot of times I see when people look at something like serverless, they'll say, oh, well, it doesn't work for this extreme edge case. And it's like, okay, but you're nowhere near that extreme edge case. And between now and then, you'll have many opportunities to reassess whether you need to like build this on a different stack. And by the time you're making that decision, you'll have resources available, assuming your business is viable, right? Totally. So don't let the eventual challenges prevent you from validating the idea today. You can get 85% of the way to pretty much any business model on really affordable approaches to software, very like automatically scalable, managed for you. You don't have to be an infrastructure expert or a DevOps expert or any of those things. Like just ship your idea, get it out there, see if somebody will pay for it. Like then worry about the stuff later about making it perfect, right?
Yeah. And just like given the fact that you ship TypeScript to serverless functions, so it's not like it's a very specific way of writing code that you have to use in order to use serverless. And then if you decide that you want to do something else with your code, it's not going to work. It is totally going to work. Of course, there are different ways of writing code for servers and, for serverless infrastructures. This is like another topic entirely, but you're absolutely right that it should not stop you from experimenting. And again, if you have like a very limited budget or you don't feel like spending excess money, because why bother? You can just leverage this magic of serverless and start building stuff. And I think it's a very exciting business model. And so many startups and companies and projects are going to be possible because serverless technologies are becoming more and more popular.
100%.
Because being able to pay somebody a small amount of money to like abstract all those problems away from you, and you get to focus on shipping stuff.
I love it. So speaking of shipping stuff, you want to write some code?
Sure.
All right, let's do it. So I'm going to switch us over into pair programming mode here. And while we're getting started, so we're talking to Tomasz today. So make sure you go and give him a follow on the tweets. And we have live captioning today, like we do on every show. We have Rachel with us today from White Coat Captioning. She is running the captions on the homepage, writing down all the silly things I say, all the smart things Tomasz says, and I very much appreciate that. Thanks for being here today, Rachel. That's made possible through
Thank you very much for enduring my accent.
Yeah, we didn't. I always forget to prep. Like, oh yeah, just be ready. He's super Polish. So the captioning is made possible through our sponsors. We've got Netlify, Fauna, Hasura, and Auth0 all kicking in to make the show more accessible, which I very much appreciate. You can see those captions on the homepage of the site. And speaking of the homepage of the site, guess what terrible decision I made, Tomasz?
It's written in React, not jQuery, or
okay, sick burn. But no, I went and got a toy made. I
saw that. It's incredible.
So there is now a party corgi rubber duck that you can buy. Let's see. Let's get this right in the middle. Do you see this? You see this little friend? Look how good. So I had a conversation with Chris Biscardi, who runs the Party Corgi Discord and partycorgi.com, who also just subscribed at 25 months. 25 months is almost as long as I have been streaming. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, Chris. But we were like, wouldn't it be cool if this thing existed? And I was like, I do wish this thing existed. Like I wished it so hard that I emailed a company and I was like, what does it take to make a rubber duck?
Okay, but it's not a duck. Okay, but
right, it's the rubber corgi duck, right? So look at this little cutie. So here's the thing. Now I can talk to the duck whenever my code doesn't work. And I'm really happy about that because I feel like it's gonna save me a lot of problems. Actually, it's not gonna save me any problems, but a lot of people are gonna be really happy that I'm talking to the corgi duck instead of talking to them. But so anyways, if you want one of these, they are now for sale. I've got them in the Learn with Json store. I'm really happy about these, and I'm intending to donate $2 of every sale to a charity. I'm gonna rotate the charity and make sure that it goes to we're gonna basically any charity that is helping people get into code. So Black Girls Code, Resilient Coders. There's some for getting kids into code, some for helping retrain folks who like have lost their jobs into coding. There's some for getting people who've been released from prison. So basically, we're going to be working with different nonprofits to try to get more people into STEM. And we'll do that by donating some of the proceeds from the corgi toy. So if you're in to do that, please go and get 1 or 2 or 3. Maybe fill your whole bathtub with rainbow corgis. That is maybe. I mean, I'm not saying I did it, but I did it.
You did.
So, anyways, if you want one of those, you can go get them. They're at the store, and I would very much love to sell a lot of these because I had to buy so many. Turns out getting a rubber duck made is it's not hard, but you have to buy a lot of them. So please go and buy one of these ducks because otherwise my whole house is full of ducks.
Please tell me, are they like actually in your house?
No, I have a fulfillment company, so I'm lying for a joke. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. I was like thinking that behind this wall it's all rubber ducks. Like,
I almost wish that was true. I could just like wheel the pallet in behind me, and you could see this mountain of ducks that I had to make. But yes, no, I'm really excited about that. And chat, get ready because now I'm going to talk about these all the time. I'm going to try to put together a little thermometer so we can see how much money for charity we're raising through that as well. So that'll be a fun thing to build.
I'm getting one. It's going to join this buddy. This is fine.
I love it. I love it.
He's a good friend for every single production incident that I have.
That's a very good one. Okay, so now that I've gotten through the sales pitch, right? Go buy a rainbow party corgi duck. Please get that now. And now I'm ready to write some code. So what should I do? The first thing, I'm gonna just make an assumption that I need a directory, right? So I'm gonna make a new directory called serverless TypeScript, and I'm gonna get into it.
Sure.
And
So I was thinking that,
what?
how do you usually start a brand new project on Netlify? What do you use? I'm just
I
curious
use a
because,
Netlify CLI personally.
Okay, let's do this.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to, so this is an empty folder. I just did a git init so that it doesn't, so it gets picked up by my CLI here. And so I'm going to, I mean, I have my Netlify server so I can run it, but let's just make a directory, right? So to make a directory to run serverless functions out of, you create a Netlify directory. And then inside of that, we would make...
You have to create a function directory. Or you can alternatively, if I remember correctly, you can just run ntl create function, and it's going to like create all of that. But we can do both ways.
Oh, wait, what did I do? Yes?
Let me look it up.
Oh, it's the other way around. Function create. Yep, that's
functions,
what it was.
Yes,
so
that's what I said.
Functions create.
Yes.
Okay,
yeah,
so
and
now
it's going
we've
to
got
like ask you to pick a template, and all of those are in JavaScript for the time being, which is fine. Like we're going to start with JavaScript, and then we're going to work our way to TypeScript. And I think to make things simple, let's start with the first one, so like a hello world, and then we're going to like kind of continue from that.
Here we go.
There you go.
Hello world, and we can call this one hello TypeScript. All right, so now I'm going to open this in my code editor over in this window. All right. And in here, we've got a folder, Netlify
I know
functions.
why you have this on the right-hand side, but it's...
Look how nice that is. Isn't that beautiful that nothing jumps? It's wonderful.
I would never get used to it.
You know what? I thought the same thing. And then I was like, I don't know about this. And I switched back, and then I was like, oh, I hate it. It jumps. So it was like I immediately got used to it and thought I didn't.
It's like one of those things that I know that are objectively correct, as in it doesn't jump. It is better than the code that jumps, but I refuse to do it.
I refuse, but maybe I don't refuse. I don't know. No, okay. So I have this function, and this function returns hello something. Oh, so this one's like set up to do query string parameters and stuff. So let's just run it.
Sure.
So I'm going to run Netlify dev. Netlify dev is definitely one of my like favorite things that we have at Netlify. It makes the local development so nice. But oh my god, look at this. Okay, so we just ran like 2 commands, and we were able to get and now we're doing local function development. So we can simplify this even like let's just well, how about this? We'll edit this to say chat. And there we go. We're off to the races. We're building serverless functions.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And this is like one of the most incredible parts of Netlify, that you have this, entire development experience which runs on your box, and then you ship it to the cloud, and you have like exactly the same experience. So we can like totally do this now.
Yeah, let's
ship it.
All right, so here's what I'm going to do. I have my git status. We have this Netlify folder, so I'm going to git add everything, right? And so now we have just our one file that we've created. So I'm going to GitHub repo create, and we'll make learn with Json serverless TypeScript. And this is the GitHub CLI letting me do the... What did I do?
I was saying that this is the best kind of TypeScript. The serverless TypeScript.
Indeed. So we're going to create a repo here, and then I'm going to make it a public repo. Yes, please. Okay, so now we have that. And I'm going to git commit, and we're going to say initial deploy. All right, let's push. Oops. We'll set it to main, so that way we can push with git push. All right, so then now it's on GitHub, so I can click here, and here's our TypeScript. Great. So then I can run Netlify Init, and this will let us create and configure a new site. I'm going to put it on my repo. We'll call it serverless TypeScript. Okay, we don't have a build command. We're not deploying anything just yet. and it auto-detected the Netlify Functions folder. So I hit yes. Okay, deploy key added. Alrighty, and then if I run Netlify open,
I am like constantly amazed how simple this is on Netlify.
it's deploying.
It's deploying, and we're going
And
to
it's
be
deployed
in production in now. Well,
all right, so if we go to our function, Netlify Functions Serverless TypeScript, if I can spell it, there we go. I did something. Oh, it was hello TypeScript, not serverless TypeScript. Hello TypeScript.
Yes.
And there we go. We got a function.
There you go.
What up? All right. So now we're deployed, and anytime we push to this repo, it'll change. But I want to make some sweet TypeScript. So what should I do? What's my move here?
Well, first of all, you have to rename the file from hello
so I should probably
TypeScript.js.
Let me stop the server then, because we're going to be changing file names. So let me open up the sidebar here. I'm going to call this TypeScript.
The sidebar, which was on the wrong side, yes.
I know it hurts. Okay, so now we've got hello.ts.
It kind of does. Yes. So here's the thing, but when you change a function from JavaScript to TypeScript, the Netlify is going to use ESBuild under the hood to ship it.
Okay.
So what I suggest that we can do is to make it more explicit, because, well, I think it's better if you invite somebody else to collaborate on this repo, and they will have this kind of knowledge to understand, okay, what's being used in order to ship this code to production, as opposed to being like a hidden knowledge. So what we can do is to create a netlify.toml file.
Netlify.toml.
Which is not a name after me, apparently.
It could be.
Toml. Yes. So what you have to do inside is that you have to specify the node bundle as ESBuild. So what you're going to do is to square bracket thingy functions.
Square boy function. Got it.
Functions, yeah. On the new line, yeah, you have to do node bundler, node underscore bundler. And this is equal to ESBuild.
Okay. So we're doing, we've just set a function setting, node bundler, we're going to use ESBuild. So this would have like auto detected because we set TypeScript, but it is nicer to know exactly what's happening here.
I think you have to indent it. I mean, the second line in the
I don't think Toml cares, but we can do it either way. I'm happy. I'm happy if you're happy.
I see. I mean, I was not aware. I was like, because I'm used to YAML, and YAML screams at you for not having. Yeah, well, I'm not fan of either. Then I have a feeling that we don't have like a good language for expressing this kind of settings and documentation. Toml is okay. Like it's simple, and if I don't have to indent the stuff the exact number of times, I'm very happy with it.
Yeah, I mean, white space sensitive languages are very confusing.
Yes.
ESBuild is not enabled by default. ESBuild is enabled if you use TypeScript by default.
Correct.
But otherwise, we use a thing called Zip It and Ship It, which I think is using Webpack under the hood. I think.
As far as I know, yeah, I was looking into it the other day, and yeah, it doesn't use ESBuild, but like Jason says, if you switch to TypeScript, it's going to use ESBuild by default, but like it won't hurt to make it a bit more explicit.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So we've got this thing running now. We've got we don't have it running. I've got a red squiggly, and you told me that with TypeScript, if I see a red squiggly, I shouldn't bother trying to deploy my code.
Yeah. So there's like a number of things that we can do, because if we're using ESBuild, we can either install types for Node, or other thing that I actually recommend is to switch the syntax a little bit, and instead of doing the module exports, we can just do an export, from ECMAScript modules, which is
ta-da!
There you go.
All right. So wait. Can I run this now? Will this?
I mean,
I don't see any red squigglies. All right, let's try it. Let's see what happens. I'm going to run it.
And that's it. Like this is going to run.
Hey, look at it go. And let's make a change.
Hello.
Hello. Wow.
There you go.
This is now an Owen Wilson API. Wow.
Wow. Okay, that's it. Hello. Cheers for having me. All right. Cheers.
We're done. Way ahead of schedule. Okay, so we've now. Okay. You joke, but legitimately, we did just like this is a TypeScript function .ts running in local development, and if we deploy this thing, let's just git add everything, right? We want all that. So git commit convert to TypeScript, and we push, and then we can come out here and look at how long this takes to deploy. ESBuild is like
incredibly fast,
redonkulous fast. I mean, it's like deploying one function is already just kind of silly fast anyways, but with ESBuild, it's going to be like, milliseconds. Let's actually look at how long it takes. So 745 milliseconds to bundle TypeScript in ESBuild.
Incredible.
Just absurd. But yeah, look, wow. So it's
one thing that I really like about this setup. Notice how we didn't install the compiler.
Yeah, we didn't have to install any TypeScript stuff. Like, I'm used to having to do a lot of work with TypeScript to like initialize it. You have a TS config, you have the TypeScript package, you have to install dev dependencies, you have to add a build step. So this like it just works. And now I know that like it sounds like because I work at Netlify, I'm pretending that I don't know this stuff. I don't write TypeScript. I've never actually used this before.
I see.
So this is extremely cool that it like just works like that.
Yeah. Like I was like honestly surprised because I was like getting into all of that, and I figured, okay, well, Netlify supports TypeScript. Okay, so I have to compile TypeScript to JavaScript on my local machine and just ship it to Netlify, and like boohoo, it's supposed TypeScript, but it does fully like you said. We are going to install the compiler and we're going to do the TS config bit in just a second, but you don't have to. Like this is completely valid TypeScript code, but it's not exactly strict. And I'm a very huge proponent of writing strict TypeScript code because, well, I think that if you're starting from scratch, and we are, it's so much better to go all in. Because, for instance, if you hover over event right now, on the second line you have the event. Yeah, it says like it's any, but we can infer this type, but we don't know what exactly it is.
Yeah, it's not great.
It's not great. I mean, every single time you find yourself using any in TypeScript, it's like, well, it's effectively disabling TypeScript in this part of the code, which means that you don't really get the full benefit, and you are saying to the compiler, "Hey, I know better," which may well be the case, but sometimes it's not, and this is when it hurts. So let's do this. Let's create a package JSON, so we can do like npm run init or whatever. How do you create a package JSON? I don't remember.
Here we go, npm init, and then we'll do a whatever, leave that blank. Do we need an entry point? Just leave it default?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, it tests. So Tomasz actually has a lot of good content on tests that you should write, or that you should watch and learn how to write them. And we're not going to do any of that today. So, all right, here's our package
custom
JSON.
license. Yeah. Okay, so now now I suggest that we actually install TypeScript. So we can do npm install savedev TypeScript. And the reason why we want to do this is that I am kind of lazy and I don't remember how to write a TS config by hand. And if we do this, we won't have to. So we have TypeScript installed as a dev dependency. And now we can do npx tsc dash init, if I remember correctly.
Hey, look at it go. Oh, wow. There's
And
a lot in here.
yes, there is a why. This is kind of like a preferred kind of way of creating a tsconfig file is you have all those things which are commented by default, but I think it's a great way to kind of understand what kind of different settings you can enable in a tsconfig file. And for the record, I don't think there are many people who kind of like understand 80% of those switches, because like some of them are quite esoteric in a way. But the most important one is kind of like in the middle of this file. If you scroll down, yeah, there you go, strict. So strict mode actually enables a couple of things in TypeScript which are not enabled by default. For instance, for like historical reasons and whatnot. But it's a funny thing because it's not enabled by default, but it is strongly recommended. But it cannot be enabled by default. But I do strongly recommend, if you are starting from a greenfield project and you don't have to migrate stuff, do use strict mode. If you are migrating, I was a huge fan of your episode with Orta, because you showed how you migrate code bases from JavaScript to TypeScript without explicitly embracing TypeScript from the start, because you did all those JS comments, and that was like quite impressive. It was like at the beginning of this year.
Orta, there it is.
Orta. There you go, this one.
Yeah, this is a good episode if you want to really get in. And then we did another one with Ben. Where's Ben? There he is. I typoed his name. Oh my goodness, that is bad. What have I done? Gotta go fix that like right now. But yeah, Ben also did an episode with me on React and TypeScript. So that's if you want to really get in, you can get in.
Yes. So we have this, and I think that we are not going to enable any more switches. I mean,
Okay.
of course, you can kind of like play around with it, but it's not necessary for now. But if you go back to our hello TypeScript, the file, yeah, it starts to complain. Woohoo! And now we cannot ship it.
Hooray! It's complaining.
Yeah. Okay, so because previously, before we enabled the strict mode, it used to be like, okay, this is any, but I don't know, whatever, it's fine. But right now it's, hey, no, this is any. So what we have to do is
I like that it changes from like the apathetic roommate that's like, nah, all right, man, whatever. You wanna let that sit in the sink for 3 months? I don't mind. But now it's very much like the school headmaster. It's like, are you sure you want to make that choice?
Are you sure? Are you sure you want to ship it to prod?
Is this what you want to be? Is this how you're gonna live your life?
Yeah. I like how both of us, were born and raised in the different countries, and like we have different roommates. But this shared experience of having this roommate who refuses to watch the dishes is kind of universal.
It really is.
Everybody has that.
Okay, so I'm gonna just clean this up a little bit and get rid of some of the noisy bits, so that we can see what's happening as we start to put stuff in. So I'm also going to get rid of this part and just say
let's just keep it for now.
Oh, you want to keep it? Okay, yeah. Oh yeah. Let's keep it.
Let's keep it because it's going to showcase one more feature.
Okay.
So right now TypeScript has no idea what an event is because we did not teach it what it is. So we can either do it by hand, which I don't want to, or we can run npm install Netlify Functions. And it's going to provide us with the types. So we do
Netlify Functions incoming. Okay, we got it.
So this package actually exposes a number of types, which are quite useful for writing, Netlify Functions.
Mm-hmm.
So we can if you do like import, curly brackets thingy from Netlify Functions, and just leave it empty. This is a handy trick that I use quite often, because right now, if you go to the square brackets and you hit like command space, there you go, you have all the things that are exported. You don't have to remember the names.
So I have
Because
a
I'm
theory
terrible at
that
names.
it's this one.
Yes.
All right. And so let me see if I remember my TypeScript. So all I need to do here is I just colon and then I put in handler event. Okay. Now this is no longer mad, but now this is mad.
Yes, it's complaining, but in a different place. So, like, I mean, we are getting somewhere.
Yeah.
Yes. Right now it is complaining because you may or may not have query string parameters. And so what's happening right now is, well, if you're trying to access a name for query string parameters which may not exist, well, it's going to break.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to, like the chat says, you have to add a question mark after the event, like this, and after the name. Before the name. What am I saying?
Hey, look how happy it is.
Yay. It is happy because, like, if in case like you are not aware, like anybody from the viewers or whatever, what this operator does, it's actually included in JavaScript as of lately as well. Mm-hmm. It's an optional chaining. So what it's going to do is that it is going to start from the event and kind of like proceed on this chain to query string parameters if they happen to exist, and if there's a name, it's going to be used. Otherwise, we're going to use the wow. Let's ship it.
Ship it. Here we go.
Ship it.
Let's add everything. We're going to git commit, and we'll say feature add types. So we'll push. Up it goes. Get into our deploys. And this is going to take a little bit more time because now we're going to install like NPM stuff, and there's some bits there, but it should still be, I bet this is like 30 seconds or so.
I mean, honestly, no matter how long it takes, it's much faster than buying a server, installing it, putting in a rack.
Fair enough. Let's see, how long did this take? It took 19 seconds. Okay, great. And if we come back out here, still works.
Well, and we can test the query parameters. So you can do, question mark name equals.
Nope, I screwed it up. What did I?
It's on localhost. It's the wrong window.
Oh, how long would it have taken me to solve that on my own? Let's hope we never have to find out. There it is. So yeah, we can.
Okay.
What up? Yeah. So this is. I mean, this is great, and. We also know that it works without, because if we leave the query parameter out, we go to our default, we're not getting errors. So, we had a fallback in place before that was catching that, because this is just kind of like, if anything goes wrong. And we've got this try catch. So if anything really blows up, it'll return a 500. So we're in like okay shape no matter what. But this is nice because now we're sure, like we're like really extra super duper pooper sure that this thing is going to do what we want it to do.
Totally. And it's like, this example just, had this extra catch for, whatever name is not provided as a query string parameters, but you may have completely forgotten about it. And it's fine. Like I would, because for instance, I would assume that whatever query string parameter is going to be like an empty object, and I'm going to get a name from it. It's going to be undefined, but no, it's actually going to be null. So if you try to access name from null, it's going to explode. And even though we have this very fast feedback loop, because like I said, it took us 20 seconds to put this thing into production.
Mm-hmm.
Well, still it's 20 seconds of waiting, pushing something to prod, refreshing the app. Oh crap, it's broken. I have to fix that over and over again. Whereas with TypeScript it's so much faster.
Yeah. And the question in the chat about the 500, if a function has an error, it will throw kind of cryptic messages about the thing not working. So it does throw a 500, but yeah, so it's better to throw your own, or you'll break the internet. The whole thing goes down. That's it. Like we just, if anybody ships an uncaught error in a serverless function, that's it. We all go home. We just start
Json
over.
gets a PagerDuty alert and.
No, there's no risk. It's just a bad error. Like you don't get a useful error message if you don't like send your own. So it's kind of like something went wrong. And for a user, they're going to see that and be like, oh, your app sucks, as opposed to getting something useful that's like, hey, you didn't send in a name parameter that's required or something like that. So it's a good way to kind of cover yourself there.
I saw a tweet today which was praising the Stripe API, and basically they have this kind of feature where error messages are their features in a way. So that they're written in such a way that every single time you send a request to their API, you get an error, but you exactly know what went wrong, as opposed to, what, there was an internal server error. Good luck on your journey to understand what happened, because we are not going to tell you.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about the value of APIs, especially developer-focused APIs, Stripe is such a case study in getting that right, because they're not just looking at the happy path. They're looking at, when you're a developer, 90% of the development process is being a little bit wrong. Like, there's a lot of room between I've started this project and it works. So most of the time, you fixed one problem and unlocked the next problem, and providing that contextual information in the error messages and showing you, like, hey, you've got the API thing now, but you're not sending us the right parameter to like do the next step, or hey, you called this API completely incorrectly, you're missing this argument. Like, that type of information saves me so much time versus when I work with an API that just assumes the happy path and it doesn't work and it sends 500, and then I have to go like compare my example to their docs example and be like, what's different here? Why didn't this work? Like, it's such a power up for a developer to have those APIs well documented, well errored.
Totally, because like otherwise you get a 400, client server error, and like, okay, I did something wrong, but I have no idea what did I do wrong. I look up in the documentation, but it's, again, all of this could have been avoided if like somebody put in a bit more work. But then again, it's incredibly difficult to get those things right, because happy path is easy to reason about, right? Because like, my app is supposed to do X. Kind of understanding all the things that could possibly go wrong, it's another thing entirely. And you have to have your app in production for like a year to understand all the different ways in this simple flow can be broken.
It really starts to point at the like exploding complexity of building real world apps. Yes. It's so easy to think about one set of possibilities, but when you get to 10 or 15 different possibilities, suddenly there's this just like factorial explosion of potential combinations of ways things could go wrong or be combined, and boy, does that get tricky to think about.
Totally.
But yeah, SDKs are another great one. I think like OctoKit is a good example of getting that right. Like OctoKit wraps the whole GitHub API in a way that's super nice with TypeScript autocomplete and good error messages and all that stuff. Like lots of ways to get DX right, and significantly more to get it wrong.
This is why we have jobs.
So like just kind of, but looking at where we are now, right? We've shipped now a TypeScript function. It's a serverless function shipped to Netlify with TypeScript bundling. And it's kind of auto deployed and up and running and everything. But so far, the only thing that we've done that feels like TypeScript is this. This is the only part that feels TypeScripty to me. Everything else just looks like code. So what else am I looking at here? Like, what else should I expect when I'm doing TypeScript serverless functions as kind of a power up?
Well, so first of all, nobody really remembers what is in the event of a serverless function. So for instance, so right now, if you do an event dot, you're going to have this understanding of event dot. There you go. We have body, we have headers, we have whether it's base 64 encoded, whether we have query string parameters and whatnot. And this is one thing. And also each Netlify function gets a second argument, which is called a context. So we can try to grab this argument as well. So in line 3, next to the event, we can do a context, and we have to grab the type from handler context. There we go.
And then if we look inside here,
yes. So for instance, here we have like a couple of things. One of them is which is fairly useful is get remaining time in milliseconds. This function over here, because like each Netlify function gets up to 10 seconds to execute. Unless it is a background function, then it has like 15 minutes. But this is kind of well, interesting to see, because if you have like a Netlify serverless function, which gets lots of data and it like processes, it's like running JSON parse 20 times in a row, JSON stringify and whatnot. It's kind of interesting sometimes to understand, well, how much time do I have? Whether I should split the input files or not. So this is one thing that can feel a little bit TypeScripty. But I was thinking that we could do something a bit more, well, advanced-ish in TypeScript.
Okay.
I could teach you something that is called a discriminating union, or I prefer that this name actually is just called a tagged union. This is the
tagged
two names
union.
from the same tagged union.
So I know what I think I know what a union is. So if I'm looking at, like, we have type cat is going to be a string, and type dog equals a string, then I could do a type pet, and a union would be cat or dog.
Exactly.
Okay. So,
but here's the thing: if we have a function that,
let me repeat this the way that I think I understand it to make sure that I know what the purpose of a union is, right? So if I have a type, and like if I have a function and that function could receive like one thing or it could receive another thing, I would have two different types, and a union says the type is going to be one of these two. And that way I know, like, based on without having to write a full superset type that has all of the different possibilities. And that doesn't even work, because in one of these, like, you could have if it's a dog and it has like a tail, then it would also need like, a wagging as a Boolean, right? If it has a tail, that tail could be wagging, and these need to be required. But if it's a cat, then the cat won't have, or I did this backwards, but a cat wouldn't have a tail that wags, because cats don't wag their tails. So then there's this whole kind of confusing thing where, like, how do we specify optional based on other things inside of type? It feels like that could get really messy really fast. So being able to specify there's this type or there's this type, but it's going to be one of those.
Exactly. So, I would not be able to give a better introduction to unions if I tried. That was great. Like, you've saved me so much time. Yes. So, like I said, the problem is that sometimes you have a function which accepts a type which is a union of other types. So, for instance, I actually have this example in front of me, which I prepared in advance. So, I have a function which takes a sandwich as an argument. So we can have a type of sandwich.
Okay, sandwich.
And a sandwich is either a pizza or a hot dog or a taco.
I see you woke up and chose violence today. Okay.
All of those are sandwiches.
Okay, so we've got pizza, hot dog, and type taco is going to be taco. All right. So we've got our three types. We've got a union.
Mm-hmm. A hot dog sandwich, exactly. I'm looking at the chat. Yeah. So I don't know. We can create a function which is, called like a serve sandwich or whatever. Let's suppose we are building like an API for a restaurant, and you can order a sandwich. So it's going to take. Oh, you have this Copilot thingy?
I do have Copilot, and sometimes it helps, and sometimes it confuses the bejeebus out of me.
I like how you started a function that was already expecting an error.
It was like, hey, you did this wrong.
Taco is not a sandwich.
Okay, so I think then.
Yeah, it doesn't have to return anything for now. Like, it
doesn't return anything. Okay.
Let's just keep it. And I think like the argument should be in lowercase to make it less confusing.
Oh, I thought I did put it in lowercase, and I think I got helped.
I think the Copilot overridden your choice. Okay, this is fine. Just accept.
Come on. Oh my goodness. That's amazing.
No,
just hush your mouth, Copilot.
Let's go back. Okay, so suppose I mean, to make it a bit more clear, let's just add a one property to each. But let's make sure that they are different to each type. So like a pizza can have a sauce or toppings, which could be. Okay, this is creepy.
Isn't it weird? It's
creepy.
Like creepily good. Yeah. Let's do a.
Let's accept it. Let's accept.
You want to use that?
No, no. We are okay. We are better than the computer.
We are better. Hubris.
Yes,
so yeah, we can make it. We'll say red or white,
yes.
Right?
Okay, a hot dog can have a.
A hot dog can be. Let's do
size.
Yeah. Okay. Let's do ballpark or.
What's a ballpark?
Like I think ballpark is like the standard size. I could be wrong. Okay. I'm just making stuff up at this point. And then
taco can be spicy or not, for instance. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah. Let's do. Spice level. Come on, just get out. Okay. Just get out with your creepiness, Copilot.
At some point, like this entire stream is going to be you accepting Copilot suggestions and just like narrating them.
It's just going to be me hitting tab. That's the. Yes. So we've got 3 types. Each one has a unique property.
Yes. So right now, if you go to the serve sandwich function, we're going to have a little bit of a pickle, because right now, if you do like let's try a console log sandwich dot size, for instance.
Yeah, they're all yes. Okay, so we do size. Now it's mad.
Yes. Now it's going to complain. Why? Because pizzas apparently don't have size. Like pizzas are infinite. So what you want to do is to be able to kind of like differentiate. To tell the difference. Yes, to tell the difference between all those different sandwiches.
Yes.
And this is where the tagged unions come in. So what you end up doing is that you add a special field to each one of those types, which kind of indicates what type of a sandwich this is. So for instance, each type is going to get a field which is going to be called type with a value of pizza, hot dog, and whatnot. So yeah, like this.
And so type. Each of these we just put in like
we just name them.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes. And what this is going to allow us to do, even though it may seem like a little bit excessive, like, okay, this type is pizza. What do I have to call it? It's like a pizza. It's already a pizza. But right now, if you, for instance, do, we can do like a switch statement in this function, because I think this is where this really shines, where you do switch sandwich.type. And right now, if you have like a case pizza, this is way too simple with Copilot.
Oh my god! Look at it go!
Wow, I am impressed. Okay, let's just what the hell? Oh, get out of here!
I don't even know how to.
This is incredibly similar to the code that I've pushed to GitHub to prepare for this episode. Yes.
Okay.
Wow.
And theoretically, this is like not possible to have. But okay, so this is going to return a string. So
just have it return a string. Yeah. So there are a couple of things here. The reason why we did it is that if you go under the line 22 and you try to access any other property from the sandwich, so for instance, sandwich dot.
But look at this. Okay, so I just typed dot, and it showed me sauce and type. All right, so now let's go under hot dog. Dot, size and type.
Exactly.
And then I go under taco. That's okay. So this is kind of incredible because what we just learned here is not only is the TypeScript autocomplete like, it's useful in that it picks up like, all right, hey, you've got a type of taco. Here are your properties, but it's contextual too. So it's picking up that like it can follow this logic. We've got a sandwich. We're looking at the sandwich type. And if it's a type of pizza, then we know that it is this part of the union and none of the others.
Exactly. This is why it's called sometimes referred to as it's a discriminating union, because like we are discriminating against tacos and hot dogs in this particular line, as in we know that it cannot be a taco. And you can even see that much clearer in VS Code, because if you type sandwich under the line 20, at the very beginning of this function, you can just do sandwich and you can hit enter. And if you hover over sandwich, so right now it's either pizza or hot dog and whatnot, but if you hover with your mouse, currently it is a sandwich. But if you move this declaration to the case pizza, it is a pizza, because it already knows like it cannot be anything other.
That's so helpful. Holy crap.
Yeah. And if you are like thinking, okay, this is neat and all, like intellectually stimulating, but what's the purpose behind this? This is quite often used when you have like a server response. As in, if you send a request, a request can be loading, it can be like an error state, it can, you get a response from the server, but there was an error on the client side and whatnot. So you can like model all of those with a union like this. So a result can be either loading state, error state, successful state, or whatever, other state.
And you can imagine too, like if you're looking at like HTTP status codes, right? Like the 200 range is going to have like a body, but the 500 range is going to have an error message. And like, while they would get returned the same way as like having a body, like it's pretty cool that you can kind of think through it like that and say like, oh yeah, no, these have different components, like, and being really clear in the way that you're communicating that like this is what these things are for. And even beyond that, if you had like, here's something that I think is true. Let's do like toppings is going to be a string. That can be an array. But I can add docs to this, right?
Yes.
And to do docs,
give it a shot.
Do I just do like, is it one of these?
It's one of these.
Okay. So
it's already deprecated.
It's already deprecated. So I can say like things like pepperoni, mushrooms,
pineapple,
etc. And then for this one, like for a hot dog, let's add the same thing, but we'll say like relish, onions, etc. And then for this one, we'll say salsa, cheese, etc. Right? And so then if we come down here, what I think we'll see is if I go to sandwich and I go to toppings and I hover, it says things like pepperoni, mushrooms, etc.
Exactly.
Okay. Come down to hot dog, relish, onions, etc. So even if we're using the same property name, we can provide contextual hints through comments. So like you said this earlier, and I think it's really sinking in how true it is. This is a communication medium. You're using TypeScript as a way to say to the devs on your team, not only this is the code I wrote, but here's why this code is written this way. This is what this code does. This is what it's for, which is really powerful.
Exactly. And if I don't know, somebody from the team that is managing the pizza microservice, they're going to deprecate the source or like call it something else. If they update their types, it's like a way of communicating to you that, hey, your code is not going to work because, well, your TypeScript is going to start complaining. And secondly, this is something that I also touched upon, is you get to kind of think about your code or the way you want to write your code, starting with types. As in, you sit down, you create all those types, and you think about, okay, what kind of objects am I going to have? What are the relations behind them? I'm going to have sandwiches. Is taco a sandwich? I'm going to post this on Twitter. It's going to be rather lively conversation, and then I'm going to I'm going to go back to my code.
But so here's another thing that's really cool, right? You just said like you know if you're managing this and you decide you're going to deprecate something, like I just threw this one in here. If we deprecate the size and we say we only have one size now, so everything is now foot long. This is useful if I look at the type definition. But if we go one step further and we look at where it's used, it's now crossed out, right? It's not throwing an error. There's no red underline. It's like this code works. But check this out. If I hover,
but it won't.
Now it shows me that it's foot long. Like I can see very clearly, we've got, hey, this declaration was marked as deprecated. Here's my reason. I can tell you why this is gone, right? So now I know, hey, it's foot long. So I can be sure that that's there. And then you're saying this is going to fail if we try to compile it?
I mean, it's not going to fail, but what I was trying to say that it will fail at some point because something that is deprecated is going to be removed.
Oh, I get you.
This indication for you as a developer, hey, better get to it because in the next version of whatever package, this is going to get removed. And I think
this is great. Like this, I mean, one of the biggest challenges I think for a lot of like open source packages, for example, or packages shipped at big companies is how do you communicate clearly like, hey, you're shipping a thing that's deprecated. Like this is 100% going to break when we ship the next major. When I was at IBM, the way we did that is we ran a code search through all of our internal repositories for usage. And then we had to go yell at each team individually to say, hey, you're still using a deprecated thing. Didn't you see my email? And they would say, of course I didn't see your email. Who looks at email? And we would say, but you have to look at email. That's the only way we can tell you what's changing. And then, you know, it was like months of getting things rolled over. Whereas if we just ship this and they start getting an error right in line in their code, like I'm a dev, I can read this and I can fix this. I don't need to go read a changelog. I don't need to check my email. I don't need to make sure that I'm staying up to date on the changelog for every internal package. I just have to read these freaking hovers. Like that's pretty game changing, I think.
And this is hugely important in this like fully distributed landscape that we're looking into. As in, of course, not every company is going to be remote, but more companies are going to be remote. And having this way, this extra channel of communication between developers without going, like I said, add channel in Slack, hey, by the way, we've deprecated this API. Because like I said, communication is incredibly difficult. And like in my experience, there's no single way to communicate a breaking change in the API. Like somebody is going to miss that email, miss that Slack message, miss this sticker note on their laptop, whatever. I've tried everything in my career. It doesn't work. One more thing that I think is going to blow your mind. What is the type of sandwich in the default case? If you scroll down.
I'm going to be so upset, aren't I?
Sandwich.
It's a never. It's a never.
It's a never.
What does that even? That means it literally can't reach this case.
Yes. It's a never type is it's a type which is, well, it's a never. Like this is literally not going to happen.
Well, and we know that it's not going to happen because sandwich is a tagged union and it only accepts pizza, hot dogs, and tacos. Pizza, hot dogs, and tacos are types that require this type here. And that means that this code, this is an unreachable branch unless you fundamentally change the way TypeScript works.
Yes.
So that's, and like, that's a level of security that you don't usually get when you're writing JavaScript, because JavaScript is a loosely typed language, which means this default case, like you throw that in because probably somebody's going to find a way to break your code.
Exactly. Notice how you added this default case, like without even thinking about it. Like you knew as a developer that, okay, sandwich can be either of those three types, but well, better safe than sorry, I suppose. I'm going to add this default case. And for the record, even though we are using TypeScript, what you usually tend to do is you add this default case and then you throw an error in there. You literally throw an error like this should not ever happen, because sometimes it's better to fail early than to fail late. as in if you know that your code has reached in a place that it was absolutely not supposed to reach in any way whatsoever, it's better to throw. It's better to bail out as opposed to charge for a sandwich that doesn't exist.
This is also my favorite error. Like, this should never happen. Like, no one will ever get here, right?
How many times have you seen that in production?
Right.
Yeah.
But so we'll say due to TS checks. So like, this is really cool, right? And so what we can do then down here is we can say, let's go use it. So we'll say, instead of subject, we'll say type, and that's going to be type. And if you don't say anything, we'll default to pizza. And
Sounds
then what we can do is,
I think we could have like a small menu, so we can create like a pizza, hot dog, a taco in an array, and just return a random entry from this menu.
okay, so
because this function is taking a sandwich as an input.
Yeah, so let's do a pizza, a hot dog, and a taco. And I'm gonna change this to be hot dog like that, so we don't have to deal with spaces.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to, in here, we're gonna say type is pizza, and we're gonna say sauce is red. Like, we'll kind of make that work, right?
Yeah, but now it's going to complain because like you did not specify the type. Because you started so you should probably do like const pizza colon pizza with uppercase, and then you start the object.
Oh, I get it.
Yeah.
So you want to do it like this?
Yes.
Okay, I got you. All right, so let's do this, and then we'll do the same thing for these two. Hot dog, and then this one's going to be a hot dog. This one's going to be a taco.
Yeah.
And all right, we're down to the wire here. We're gonna do this fast. So we're gonna set size, or type is hot dog, and size is ballpark. Perfect. Thank you, Autopilot, for making us fast. Type is taco, and spice level is. We're gonna go for spicy.
Like, it's been an hour and I'm still blown away.
Yeah.
By this autocomplete.
Oh, it's not spicy. It's hot.
This is incredible.
But it's helping me, and I could have not had to scroll up. See, this is why I always forget that TypeScript will just solve my problems for me. And so we've got the const here, and what we will do is we will say sandwich equals.
We could just create like an array of sandwiches.
Up. Damn it, that is a terrible ternary, first of all. But it got it right. So then we can just serve sandwich with our sandwich. Right? So now when we run this, theoretically speaking, toppings is missing is in type taco. Oh, let's make these all optional. And it's just like that, right?
Yes.
Okay, so now it won't yell at us. And good. All right, let's run it locally, and then let's deploy it, and then we'll put a bow on this.
Mm-hmm.
Pizza with red sauce. Let's do type hot dog.
Taco.
Hot dog with ballpark size. Taco with hot spice. Okay, so we did it. We shipped a like functioning piece of code, and we knew it was going to work before I ran it because we got all these pieces to plug together, and we can see what's happening here, right? Like, this is really powerful stuff. So let me git add everything. We'll git commit, and we'll say add sandwiches. And we'll push that. Head out to the deploys, and here we go. So this will take us about 20 seconds, and then we'll be live. Man, this is so cool. I'm so excited.
Yeah, it's outstanding.
Let's see, questions about databases. Yeah, there are definitely some cool data. Like DynamoDB is very cool. There's some other options out there that are really cool, that are worth looking at. But we're not talking about that today, and unfortunately, we don't have time for the tangent. So I'm gonna not go down that road. But so here we go. We're now running. You can go try this right now, and if you want to put in a type of taco, okay, there's your taco, right? Yeah. Like, dang, that is cool. Like it's just, there's a lot of potential here. There's a lot of stuff that you can kind of benefit from. And I like your reframing of this is like, it's not like you're writing TypeScript because TypeScript is the best programming language and it's going to change everything and you're never going to have bugs again. I like TypeScript because TypeScript is a communication tool. And I think that, if you think of code as communication, which it is, you're either communicating with a computer to say, hey, computer, do this, or you're communicating with your coworkers to say, this is how I solve this problem. TypeScript makes both of those loops less lossy. And lossy communication is a big problem because if I know a thing and, I can describe it in 100 words, but I tell you 4 of them, you might get the gist of what I'm saying and then you can go work on it, but we're not on the same page. So making communication less lossy and TypeScript being able to do that is a huge win. Thank you for the sub, Victor.
Thank you for the sub.
So Tomasz, what should people do next? Like if somebody wants to get running, what's their next step?
So I do strongly recommend getting through TypeScript Handbook. So TypeScript Handbook is published, it's free, it's on TypeScript documentation. The reason why I suggest it is that it was recently completely rewritten from scratch. And it's like one of the best ways to kind of understanding TypeScript. Because like TypeScript is a large language. There's lots of it. And, being able to kind of have this a good understanding of the language itself will help you quite a lot when you are, building and working on larger projects. And secondly, I think it's worthwhile to actually get into the weeds of TypeScript and to start small. So if you have like a legacy app that was written back in 1997, probably is not the best candidate for you to start, learning TypeScript. But if you have like a small toy project, just give it a shot. Try replacing all the files with TS, see all those red squiggly lines and make them go away. And you will become like a better, more confident developer as a result, because my biggest takeaway from this entire stream is that notice that we shipped this entire sandwich API to prod when we were 100% sure that it actually worked. Like we didn't do any tests, but hey, TypeScript was not complaining. And Copilot was here with us. So we were like, we were fairly sure that we could ship it. But this is one terrible ternary statement. I would not accept that in the code review.
Yeah, absolutely. That one's going to get rejected in the PR review. But so make sure you go and follow Tomasz on Twitter. Lots of really good information there. Again, make sure you go check out the Egghead as well, because Egghead, Tomasz has 170 lessons on there, which is incredible. And in addition to Tomasz's stuff, there's just a ton of good information on there. So make sure you go and check that out. Don't
Json
forget,
also has awesome courses.
I do have some courses on there. That's true. I have shipped a Party Corgi toy. Please go and get one. We are going to be donating some of the proceeds to charity, so make sure you go and do that. And as always, we have had live captioning today. Rachel's been here with us the whole day, writing down all the things we say. She's from White Coat Captioning. Thank you so much, Rachel, for being here. That's made possible by Netlify, Fauna, Hasura, and Auth0. Make sure you go and check out the schedule as well. We have some really good stuff coming up. Next week, we're going to talk to Shrustika about Ably. Ably is real time. It is extremely cool. I haven't had a chance to play with it. I cannot wait. So make sure you come and check that one out. Then we're going to have Jamstack and Headless CMS with Strappy. And we're going to do right to left support for websites. I had to move an episode, so we're doing 3 next week. It's going to be Tuesday,
Nice.
Wednesday, Thursday next week. Please come and check that out. It's going to be so much fun. With that, I think we are finished. Tomasz, any parting words?
Order the corgi duck immediately. I mean, I'm doing that right now.
All right, y'all. Stay tuned. We're going to go find
right.
somebody to raid. Tomasz, thank you so much for hanging out today. We will see y'all next
My
time.
pleasure. It was awesome.